Hey chef, what do you think about increasing the minimum wage for food service workers to $15 an hour? Well, in this video, I'm going to give you my pros, cons, and my personal opinion on this particular matter. Coming up on this episode of Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jimmy here with The Other Chef. On this channel, we talk about the food service industry. We also do some food and product demos, as well as check out some of the eats and drinks all across America. So if you're interested in some of those topics, consider subscribing. So, this is a very interesting topic that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, but I wanted to get some data, and most importantly, I wanted to actually write down my pros, cons, and opinions on this particular matter. So, before we even go into the actual particulars of the pros and cons and my opinion on this particular topics, let me actually set the record straight from the beginning. When I speak of food service worker, I'm not just talking about a particular type of worker. It doesn't matter if you are fast food, a line cook, server, dishwasher, bartender, host, front of the house employee. It doesn't matter. I think that the whole entire food service industry is a very unappreciated and a very underpaid industry. So let's get into the pros and cons and my opinion of this video. Check out the timestamps below if you want to go towards that part of the video. However, I highly recommend that you listen and watch the entirety of the video. Okay, the pros. If the federal minimum wage was raised to $15 an hour for all employees in the United States, the first thing is they're going to have more money in their pocket. They will have more purchasing power in this economy. They will be able to get themselves out of that financial bind, whether poverty or relying less on government assistance, or even most importantly, take care of things that are a priority to them. For example, going to school, fixing that car, getting a car. I believe that it is very important that employers have to recognize that employees should get paid a little more to be able to have ends meet. Now, I'm not saying that it's entirely up to the employer to provide that livable wage that everyone talks about. But remember, the minimum wage is a floor, and it's up to really the companies and the small businesses provide that little cushion or gap. And the last pro is also better and happier employees. Look, if you actually pay your employees pretty well, hopefully chances are they're going to take care of you because their mental health is actually in a better state. They're not completely stressing. And most importantly, if they are appreciated at work, they're going to stay with you and they're going to work longer and work harder for you. Now, mind you, this is just in an ideal situation. Okay, the cons, and there are a couple of them. First, if the minimum wage is actually increased federally to $15 an hour, some small, medium businesses, which really makes up 48% of the total workforce in businesses in this country, are going to be in financial trouble. Because, let's face it, if you want to open a restaurant, the biggest cost in maintaining that restaurant is your labor cost. We're not even talking about your rent or your utilities or your food cost or even your marketing. Your labor cost is going to be the biggest concern for a small business owner's budget. Now, there are some things that businesses can do. For example, they can bring in cheap labor from a third world country, and this is very common, unfortunately. Another thing that will probably happen, well, actually, it's already happening, is the introduction of automation. Think about it this way: if you go to your favorite fast food restaurant, chances are there's not going to be an actual person taking an order. is most likely a kiosk. And the other thing is that everything can be communicated through the kiosk unless for some reason you need to actually speak to a human. This is the same thing when you go to a checkout line, you see 10, maybe 15 lanes, but only 2 lanes are actually open with actual people that are checking the items. And then there's also self checkout, which has over 8 or 9 spots and one person overseeing any erroneous transactions or special requests that need to be made. So automation is already happening. Another con is also $15 an hour might be great in one part of the country, but it might not be great for another part of the country. Let me explain. Since I've traveled all over the country and lived in many parts of the country, for example, Louisiana, Texas, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Oregon, and so on, the cost of living in all those places are all completely different depending on where you are. I'll give you an example. Louisiana, minimum wage is $7.25. But if you are a tipped employee, like a server, you actually get a tipped minimum wage, which is usually $2.13 for starters, and then you make your money off tips. So a couple of years ago, a professor from MIT created a website of a livable wage calculator throughout the entire United States. You can even take it down to each parish or local municipality or even zip code to determine what is the livable wage in that area. Now, here's the thing: livable wage and minimum wage really isn't the same thing. You have to remember, minimum wage is a floor that is determined by the federal government or the local municipality, and the livable wage is the projected wage that you need to be able to live comfortably in that area. Now, they're only talking about, for example, what I call the four basic walls: your food, your utilities, shelter, and transportation. That's it. We're not even talking about bills. We're not even talking about cell phone packages. We're not even talking about internet. We're not even talking about any other bonus items. For example, you want to get your nails done or get your hair cut or any of that stuff. Those are the four basic things. Now, when I check out New Orleans, Louisiana, or Orleans Parish, the livable wage in that area is $15.01 at the time of this video. Now, if you go literally to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is about an hour and a half, depending on where you are in New Orleans, the livable wage is actually $14.83. And then if you go to Lafayette, Louisiana, it's actually down to $13.30. So $15 might be great in one area, but it might not be great in another area. Now, you're probably wondering, well, Louisiana is a cheap state to live in. Relatively so, but let's look at Portland, Oregon. So Portland has Multnomah County and also Washington County and Clackamas County as well. If you do the average cost for just an adult, so just like myself living alone, you need to make over $18.83 per hour to be able to live comfortably. Now, I'm going to tell you something. $15 an hour might be great in Oregon for a minimum wage for a low skill worker, but it would be horrible for someone that actually has a skill set. Okay, so those are my pros and cons. Here are some of my thoughts. So first of all, I think that the federal minimum wage should be raised gradually to keep up with inflation, especially during this time of the pandemic and the increase of inflation at its highest in 40 years. Now, there are a handful of companies that have stepped up to increase their minimum wage within their company. And these are more like larger companies. For example, your Costco's, some of your insurance companies, Bank of America has raised their minimum wage. In my opinion, fast food workers are, to me, considered entry level, low skill workers, and they should be paid slightly above minimum wage. But the problem is, some people just are happy working in that position, making the same amount of money, not progressing their skill set so that they can go and to do something else. And I think that's a big problem, which segues me into my next point. I think education is key, but with restraint and some guidelines. Let's face it, going back to school at a post secondary level like a college can be expensive. I mean, some 4 year universities, it costs way too much for you to go to school. And some people actually have to pull loans to be able to go to school and take care of their basic needs and everything. Now, this is when I really think trades are a huge incentive for people that want to get into the workforce, whether if they want to go into that type of position or not. It's also on the flip side as well, because there are jobs out there that actually have degrees and require to have degrees, but they don't get paid that well. For example, paramedics, nurses, and unfortunately, even teachers. So I really think education is key if it's done the right way. Trades actually make pretty decent money once they have gone through the apprenticeship. And then, if the journeyman wants to continue on with their education, most likely that union or that group will pay for the education so that the journeyman can get that degree. So I really think the trades market is a very good market. Even though for me, as a professional culinarian, I think that if you want to continue going into the route of being in the food service industry, you have to actually ask yourself, what do I see myself doing? Do I actually want to progress to becoming like a sous chef or executive chef or being your own small business owner? Or you are just happy being that line cook, cooking the same thing, making a decent amount of money, and just doing the bare minimum so that you can take care of your family? Because there are people that are like that. There are people who are just working just so that they can make the minimum that they need, and they're happy with that. And some people are content with that. Me, however, I'm not. And this is why this is strictly my opinion. For example, when I was in the industry full time, I was making a decent wage, but I wasn't happy because I want to actually get to the next level, and that is being either an executive chef or being my own separate business owner. Check out the video up here if you want to find out a little bit more of what it takes to become a business owner or actually use your skill set that you have so that you can actually become a better chef. The last two things I'm going to talk about is, I believe now in this time and day that the employees actually have more bargaining power, especially with this pandemic completely exposing the entire industry. And what I mean by this is, for example, there are people that I know that are professional cooks that still are not coming back to work because they are worried about getting sick. They are worried about getting uh, not getting paid enough. And now they also have to deal with their children being at home, learning from home, not being able to go to the schools because the school either forces whatever policies, or the schools are closed down because someone or someone's caught the virus. So it's a huge compounding problem that needs to be resolved in the right way. And I think that the employees of this particular field right now, the food service industry, has a lot of bargaining power. I recall someone was applying for a sous chef position, and he knows that the average sous chef in that particular area makes amount of money. But the thing is, he has a daughter, and his daughter needs daycare. So how can he provide daycare when he's trying to go to work or try to find work? Not to mention paying for a 2-bedroom house, and all the responsibility belongs to him. So I'm not saying that each situation, whether individual or family situation, is regarded for this. But the thing is that every situation is different. For example, for me, I don't have family, I don't have kids. So could I survive off of $18 an hour in Portland, Oregon? Probably not, because let's face it, the prices for rent have gone exponentially high. Even if you pay me $20 an hour as a line cook, I would still struggle unless I actually drop down to renting a room, which is something that I've actually have done before. But in a way, you want to work your way up so that you can be in a better financial situation, right? And that's the reason why I actually started The Other Chef, and I actually started doing more pop-up opportunities so that I can make that extra amount of money, even if it's just $500 to $600 a week. It does help. The last thing I want to talk about is some employers are really small business owners, which makes up about roughly 48% of the entire workforce here in America. Everything else is mostly big business or sole proprietorships. So it's a huge burden for employers to raise their wages because of certain conditions that are going on, whether in their state or in their local municipality. But then some employees think that the employers are responsible for their livable wage. I'll give you an example. Let's say if myself and another line cook, we do the same position, do the same task, show up at the same hours, working in the same restaurant, but I'm single and I only get paid $15 an hour, but my counterpart is married, their spouse is working, and they have a kid. So is it really up to the employer to pay that person more because of their particular situation? To me, the answer is no. I think it really should be just strictly based on experience, merit, and if you have the drive. So I think the livable wage situation is very situational because it might work in Louisiana, but I don't think it would work in Portland, Oregon, or New York City, or Los Angeles, California, or Miami, Florida, or that situation might not even work in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Because the thing is, everyone has to remember that even though the minimum wage has not risen since 2009, they have to actually get into a better situation to be able to get better paying jobs, whether if it's in the food service industry or not. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and answer today's question of the day. Do you think that food service workers should get paid $15 an hour? Leave your comments below. Please keep the comments very positive. Try not to be as negative because they are going to be screened by me personally. And also, if you are producing a problem, try to propose a solution. What do you guys think we should do if this is a big problem? Leave your comments below. I love to interact with everybody. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.